What's up, College Station? I'm Grace Hollowell, and today my guest is Barbara Moore, our University and Community Relations Manager. Hi, Barbara.
Hey, Grace. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. The last time you were here, we were talking about the Christmas parade.
Correct.
So it's been a while.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some resources that we have for our student population. They are already here. They're moving back.
They're on their way back.
And we are kind of a unique city where the majority of our population are college students,
Yes.
Which makes what you do so interesting to me because not every city has a university and community relations department. And it's a great resource not only for our students, but for our residents as well. So let's kick things off by talking about a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay. I've been with the city. This year will be 18 years. I spent about a good 12 or 13 of those years as the city's neighborhood and community relations coordinator, working with all of our HOAs, neighborhoods, community groups, sort of being a liaison between those groups and various city departments. And in 2019, I moved into a different role in the city manager's office as an assistant to the city manager, which is an absolutely wonderful experience, working on special projects in the city manager's office. My role is still in the city manager's office now. Took on a little bit of a different title a few years ago and transitioned to the university and community relations manager role, where I'm still over all the things with HOAs, community groups, civic engagement with residents, but now a specialized focus on working with different departments at Texas A&M that focus on off-campus student life.
Yes, and you actually started right here in public communications.
Correct. That's right.
That was before my time,
Yes.
But it was kind of, like I said, it's a unique position.
It is.
I know our neighbor city of Bryan, they do have some students, but they don't have as many students living in their residents in their neighborhoods
Right.
like we do. So we have different needs
We do.
that you service, and people have different questions about different things. So what is the biggest challenge? I know we talk about on the show all the time, our city is growing, and it's grown, and it doesn't look the same as it did last year compared to 5 years ago, even 10
Right.
years ago. So with you being here 18 years, what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed?
One of the things I think that's particularly noteworthy is this position in, neighborhood services has been around since 1999. It started in the planning department, and I think it was really a good thing that the city had a forethought way back then, 25, 26 years ago, to have a focus on resident engagement and working with residents and having them have a resource within the city to help them stay connected and find solutions. And so that issue has also grown because we as a city have grown. So when I started here 18 years ago, we had about 32 HOAs and neighborhood groups in our database that we work with. Now we have over 100.
Yes.
So that's just for size and just time frame in 18 years, we have grown dramatically. And a lot of those people are, people that are not necessarily our student population, but our residents. So we've grown there as well. And I think also with the student population, one of the biggest challenges we have is that, most of the students don't live on campus.
Right.
There's a limited number of beds in the dorms and university apartments. It's really difficult to get them. It's kind of a little bit of a rat race. And so that means we have a lot of students that live in the community. So trying to blend the community where the residents have some acceptance of, hey, you may have some college student neighbors, and for our college students to understand, you may have some neighbors that have a new baby and they both have to get up to go to work at 7 and 8 in the morning, and so there's a blending of the lifestyles that I
Yes.
think we have to do really well here in College Station, because we do have those two populations and age group, not to mention one of our fastest growing populations relocating to College Station are seniors.
Right.
So it's like the college kids, their parents, and their grandparents. We have all three groups here, and so trying to make sure that each one of those groups feel seen and heard, and listened to in the community is often a challenge because each one may feel like we pay more attention to the other groups,
Right.
when in actuality we really are trying to make sure we hear from everybody. So balancing the needs of all of our residents, knowing that all of them are different, can be a little bit of a challenge, but I think we're positioned well to do that at the City of College Station.
Yes, and a lot of the time with the students, they don't know what they don't know, right?
Correct,
So
right.
the big thing is getting that information out there to them about different ordinances and codes. And yeah, I have a neighbor, but I don't know much about them because I haven't met them yet.
Right.
So yes, getting the resources that we have out to not only our students but our residents as well is a big thing and kind of the heart of what you do.
It is. We spend a huge portion of our budget in community relations on education.
Yes.
And that is, we have what's called a welcome bag, and we have those in a couple of different formats. We have some specifically for our student residents that has more information about ordinances, tips to do when you live in a college town, city services, what we offer, how we offer them, how you access them. And we have some of that same information for residents too that don't focus on some of the things that students might need to know. And we make those available in a couple of different formats. We have the student welcome bag and the resident welcome bag. What we encourage a lot of our neighborhoods to do is to get the student welcome bag and go and meet your neighbor. Go take it over and make some cookies, knock on the door, share the welcome bag with them. It has great information with them on what to expect living in College Station, what our ordinances are, what our rules are, and then you can also kind of slip in a little something about your own neighborhood, like who are the people to contact
Right.
if you need whatever. So we do those throughout the year. We have a great partnership with the Federation of Aggie Moms that help us to get the student bags out to their students as well as to other Aggie moms. And so we have that's a huge part of what we do that goes on throughout the year is getting that information out. Because like you said, people are moving here from all over the country, in
Right.
some cases outside of the country, and they don't necessarily know. Rules are different from place to place, and what may be a rule somewhere may not be a rule here,
Right.
or vice versa. So we spend a fair amount of time educating people, and it is rotating because we have to do the same thing in January
Right.
because we get new students that come in January. So it is an ongoing thing for us to educate the students and the residents on what's going on. And so sometimes it can feel like we just said that, but we have to keep saying it, right? But we're saying it to a different group of people every year. And so I know our partners at Texas A&M Off-Campus Student Services do the same thing. We have to share those messages over and over again in hopes that they reach our student residents and just kind of do what we can to get the word out.
Yes, and part of that is the community living course that your office handles as well. And I know when I was involved with that program, we would say that information and the students would be like, I had no idea, or I didn't know that I wasn't, I needed to have my trash out by 8 a.m. every morning and pull it back in as soon as it was collected. I didn't know that that was a rule.
Yes.
So yes, education is very, very important. What is one thing that you wish people knew about your department or your area of expertise?
I wish they knew that we were there for all of them. And so we do try to go out and go to HOA and neighborhood meetings. We host events monthly for our neighborhoods and residents to come out and learn about the city. And we also try to do some similar programs with Texas A&M Off-Campus Student Services so that the students know that we're here. And so just so that people know that we're here for everybody. We're not just here to serve the students.
Right.
We're not just here to serve the residents. We're here to serve the citizens of College Station. And we don't have a particular bent towards we're more this way or that way. We're here to make sure everybody equally has a wonderful experience living here in College Station.
Yes, it is a perfect blend, I think, of all walks of life. I know that's one of the reasons that I enjoy living here so much. And what is the biggest thing that you've learned over time in your position? I know that's it's a loaded question.
One of the things that I've learned is working with the city, sometimes we have to tell people no. And that's not what they want to hear. But I think if you try to, meet them halfway and find a solution that's still, it may not be 100% what they want, but it still shows the effort that you care, and that you're trying to meet them halfway. I think that's really important. Listening is also really
Yes.
important, because you can tend to hear the same types of things from people, but it may be a little different. So not just closing your ears up and saying, oh, I've heard that before. Actually listening,
Yeah.
because it could be different, and it could be impacting that person in a different way, which could impact our response in a different way. So listening is really, really important. And sometimes we don't have a solution, but we can still try to be a resource and be as understanding as we can. And then, if possible, finding other places in the community who may have a resource that could assist that person. So still knowing that we want to be a resource in whatever way that we can. We can't always be that, but still finding a way to let that person know you're going the extra mile to help them. And I feel like we do that really well here at the city, and we have a great interconnection within our departments that if maybe I can't, maybe someone else can. And so I think that's been very beneficial, is having those strong working relationships with other departments that can also help our residents when we've done as much as we can.
Yes, and that is a really important aspect, is that we always do our best and we want to help.
Yes, we do.
We don't want to just say no because
Yes.
it's too much work for us to do. No, we
Yes.
are here to serve our residents, and while we can't always say yes, we will do everything that we can to find a solution.
Yes.
For the problem that they may be facing.
Yeah, and that's hard sometimes for people to hear that, especially
Right.
if it's something emotional or something that's been ongoing. But we try our best, and even in that setting, it's an education setting, right? We're letting them know what we can or can't do, because
Right.
lots of times people think the city can do everything, and there in some
And that's
cases
not true.
that is not true. There are laws and ordinances, rules that constrain in some instances what we can do, and so even that is an education opportunity. It's not always the most fun one, but at least they know now what the city can and can't do, and how we can help you, and what our resources are to make available to them.
Yes. So before we get into what we're talking about today, which is going to be more student focused, since it is that time of year,
It is.
how can people contact you if they have questions?
Sure, they can reach me at by phone at 764-6327, or by email at bmoore, BMOORE, at cstx.gov. I'm always around, and
Yes.
so I'm quick to respond as quickly as I can. Always open for a phone call, video chat, virtual, whatever, to be able to hear what people have to say.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned video chat, because sometimes it is nice to kind of put a face to the name of who you're
absolutely.
emailing or talking to, especially if it's a topic that you feel strongly about. You want to see who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some resources that we have for our students. What are some of the key things that the City of College Station can offer to help our students as they transition into living in our community?
Yeah, one of the things we do, like I mentioned, is the welcome bag. It has all types of information in it. It has good information on noise, parties, trash, the top violations that are code violations that most of our residents tend to get that they don't know about. And we always like for our students, the first time they meet us is through a citation. We
Right.
want them to know what not to do. So we provide that information to them. Our website is also another resource. The Neighborhood Services webpage has great information on it. The welcome bag is usually on there in a digital format as well. If people don't want to come in and get a physical one, we try to make that available so that they could see it online, pass the link on to others, and be able to share that information. And we always do one-on-one meetings if somebody wants to come in and talk and they have questions about what we offer, or they have unique situations that may not be phone call worthy where you need to have a sit down. We're always available to do that. Some of the other resources that we have are within some of our other departments. We have information on public works, sanitation, planning, you name it. We try to connect the students with our bike maps
Yes.
on things that they need to know while they're here to help them enjoy their time here and not have to worry so much about some of those things, because once you know them, right?
Right.
And so that's our goal, is to make sure that they come into this year educated. We also share a lot of those same resources with Texas A&M Off-Campus Student Services, and they share it with the off-campus student population as well as their parents. And so that's been a great resource for us, is to be able to have them share those resources. And in some settings, they share it during new student conferences, and some through their webpage and email listservs. They share lots of city information with the incoming students and transfer students, and that's been very helpful to us over the past few years.
Yes, they are a big resource
They are.
to reach that student population that may not know that we're here to help them as
Exactly.
well.
Yes.
What should students know about the housing and neighborhood expectations, especially for those living off campus for the first time? This may be their
Yeah.
first time on their own without their parents there. They're living with roommates. They're signing leases.
Yes.
What are the key things that they need to know about living in our neighborhoods?
I would say the key thing that they would need to know is, if they're living in a neighborhood that has an HOA, be sure that you and your parents or the property manager has provided you with a copy of the deed restrictions so that you know what they are, because they have more regulatory power in some instances than the city, and can fine you and different things like that. So make sure that you know what those rules are. We also want them to make sure that if their property management company has any rules that they require for their tenants, that they know what those rules are, because when you violate them, and if it's a lease violation, your lease could be terminated, and that's always very stressful for students. And I would say the Texas A&M Off-Campus Student Services Office has a leasing specialist. If they have questions about their leases, please reach out to that group, because sometimes the language in leases can be a little tricky and
Right.
hard to understand. So if they have those questions, I strongly urge them and their parents to reach out to that group. They can help them sort of evaluate that lease and see if there are things in that lease that are a no-no, or that kind of could be something that later on they wish that they hadn't signed, given some of those clauses. So we strongly encourage them to make sure that they know what they're signing before
Yes.
they sign, because after you sign it, it's really hard to get out of it. We
Right.
also make sure, encourage them to, if you're moving into a neighborhood, just kind of observe the neighborhood and see what the culture of the neighborhood is. Not that you would want to stick out or anything like that, but you just kind of want to know what is the culture of that neighborhood, so that you can blend in and you can understand it. Like if it's a neighborhood where, there are a lot of retired people, having parties at 3 a.m. might not be a great idea.
Right.
Or if it's a neighborhood where it's a lot of young families, having parties at 3 a.m. may not be a good
Yeah.
idea. So just kind of understanding the culture and the flow of the neighborhood that you're moving into. And in some cases, it may be that, hey, this is a great find price-wise, but it may not be a good fit for you to live there. So just being sure that you found a place where you can feel at home, and not somewhere where you feel out of place. And so we encourage them to just kind of take a look at the neighborhood, drive around in the middle of the day and see what it's like in the afternoon, and just kind of get a feel for it. So those are kind of some of the things that we encourage students to do as they're moving into the neighborhoods. Just kind of know a little bit about the neighborhood you're moving into, and just if there are any unspoken rules or customs, that you find at least one person in that neighborhood that you can connect with, that you can share phone numbers and emails with, in case something happens and you need a friend or you need a neighbor. And so we strongly encourage that, as well as know your neighbors. Go and
Yes.
meet at least one, is one thing we challenge the students with. Meet one person that's not another student neighbor in your
Yes.
neighborhood, so that you can, and that also builds intergenerational community as well, which is what we want to see, a harmonious community, and I think that's a good way to do it.
Yes, and I don't know so much anymore. I'm getting older. And I also grew up near Pittsburgh, where he's from, but Mr. Rogers was something that I grew up with being a neighbor, and
That's
won't you
right.
be my neighbor? So that's something, we're taught when we're really young.
Yes.
But as we get older, our responsibilities get changed, and we get so focused on our school or our
Yeah,
work that
absolutely.
it's tough to kind of sink inward into our own little bubbles, that we forget that
Absolutely.
I'm a part of a community with similar folks that have different
Exactly.
experiences, or maybe they can help me or I can help them. If you're in a neighborhood and you see a mother struggling with her kids and carrying her groceries
Go
in,
help
just
her
say,
out.
hey, you need help. It's just as easy as that, getting to
It
know your
is.
neighbors.
It is, and that's a big thing, I think, that we as a almost as a society, everybody's so busy that you
Yeah.
get out of your car, you're rushing, and you go in and you're in your home. And one of the things that we do encourage the neighborhoods is that if you guys are having picnics, if you're having parties, if you're having celebrations, please invite your student neighbors. They're your neighbors too.
Yeah.
And so being sure that it goes the other way, that the neighborhoods are also providing an avenue for the students to feel like it's their home as well.
Yes, because we are a home for everybody
We
here.
are.
So we talked a little bit about some violations and how sometimes our first contact with the students can be through a violation. What are those most common? I know we've had Tommy and Caroline on the show
Yes.
recently talk about them, but what are some of the common code violations that students could look out for so they don't make those mistakes?
One of the main ones is, of course, leaving the trash cans out for too long. Another one is parking in the yard. In some places, it's not a big deal. You can do that. Here, we don't so much like that.
Right.
And so also just kind of reminding them just sort of small things like, people get really upset when you park in front of their mailbox. It's just like, hey, if it's a mailbox, don't park there. Park a little bit further down. It's a city street, so people can park wherever they want. But, just some courtesy things like
Right.
that. Sometimes leaving bulk items out at move in and move out are a challenge in our community. Sometimes they have to get the stuff out because they have to get out, and it may sit there for a while. And so kind of remembering the time frames when those items need to be out so that they're not out for too long of a period of time. Moving and move out in this town can be rough.
Yes.
And so we ask our residents to also bear with our sanitation workers. In code enforcement, it's a rough time of year for them, and they have the entire city to work with. So we try to get that message out to residents. Some of the other ones are remembering what the quiet hours are from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So if you're having some type of celebration or whatever, just remember after those hours, you could be cited if your event is a little bit loud or rowdy. Also reminding them if you are having a large gathering, where alcohol is present and you're having over a certain amount of people, we require a special event permit for that. And just kind of making sure that they understand that, because we, every year we'll have somebody who will throw a really large event and they just didn't know that you
Right.
couldn't invite 200 of your, nicest friends over and have a band and
Yeah.
without there being, a permitting process. Some people just, depending on where you come from, that doesn't exist. So making sure that they understand those rules. And then I would say over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, we've seen a reduction, I'd say maybe the last 5 years, a reduction of a lot of the neighborhood parties, and a lot of people have shifted to Northgate. And so we're seeing about half of the parties that we used to see in the neighborhood, we see them during football season, we definitely do, but not as much throughout the rest of the year because a lot of them have transitioned over to Northgate. And so we are always concerned about safety, and so we
Yes.
want to make sure that if they're having any of those types of celebrations, that they think a little bit about how to make them as safe as possible, not just from an alcohol perspective, but just from an overall safety perspective as well. Because, you're 19, you're 20, you're outside of home, and you're doing things for the first time, and many of these things are absolutely foreign concepts to
Right.
a lot of the students on what it means to live in the city and what the rules are specific to College Station. So yeah, those are some of the ones: the noise, parties, trash, and if you do have a party, picking up all of your garbage the next day is extremely helpful, so that you don't get ticketed. Reminding people during football season that you can't sell parking spaces
Right.
in your yard.
Yeah.
Lots of people like to do that, and so those are the kind of things that people just don't know that you can't do. So we do kind of have a little extra push during football season to get some of that messaging out, because that's where we tend to see a lot of those types of things happening during that time frame.
Right. It is very unique,
It
our
is
football
very,
season.
very unique,
I
yes.
mention all the time I'm a northerner, and while we have football up there, it is not as big of a deal as it is here.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And
It's
it
huge.
is a very a different environment.
Absolutely.
Where we want you to have fun. We all cheer for the Aggies and we want them to do well, but we want things to be safe, and we want our city to stay clean. I live near the Pittsburgh area, who is notorious for when they have big events, the city is completely trashed afterwards. So everybody needs to kind of do their part to keep things safe, keep things clean.
Yes.
Think about how you would want your living space to be, because you are living here.
That is correct.
So with that, we talked about the bulk pickup and things like that. Scheduling trash services, how can the students find that information?
Well, one of the things that they can do is look at this on the city's website, on the sanitation webpage, but they also have a fantastic app that you can download to your phone, and you can set it. Once you put in your address, it lets you know what your days are for bulk, brush, and regular sanitation pickup. And we encourage students, we even have flyers on our information that we give out. We encourage them to get that because that's super useful to them to know what are the days that you can do that. Most of the time, depending on where they are, all of the utility services are kind of taken care of. If they're an apartment complex, that's different. But if they're living out in the neighborhoods, sometimes the utilities are split and people may not see or get all the same messages depending on how their bills are done. But the sanitation information is definitely out there. That is one of the main ones I would encourage them to look at, as well as the code enforcement webpage. I think those are the two big ones, because those are the two things that we tend to hear about the most from residents, along with parking.
Yes, parking, which brings us to our next kind of topic, is parking. And we touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the parking or overall just like driving through our neighborhoods? What are some of the things that we see that can be a problem, and how can our residents correct that?
So one of the things is we have an internal group, the traffic management team, and whenever residents give us streets or areas that they're noticing some unusual traffic patterns or some that may be a safety hazard, they send them to that group of city staff from a variety of departments. They review them. In some cases, if you're noticing way too many cars on the street and emergency vehicles can't get through, or a mid-size SUV or truck can't get through, then that means we'll have to remove parking on one side of the street. Whichever side has the fire hydrant is the side that gets removed. And
that's something too that you typically, if you're not thinking about it, or if you're not in an emergency, you wouldn't think, oh well, having an extra car here, it's fine, cars can get through, but what about a fire truck? What about, an ambulance? That's something that's really important. And I know Tommy says all the time when we have him on the show from code enforcement, if they need to get to where your car is, they will move it. They will not ask you. They will just do it.
They will do it. And you may have a broken window, or your car may be down the street, one or the other. But if there's an emergency, they have to do what they have to do. So we do have a fair number of streets in and around the university, South Side and Eastgate, possibly over here near City Hall, where parking has been removed and it's only on one side of the street, and it is for those safety purposes. And so we remind people to kind of look around for the signs, be sure that you're not parking in an area where it says no parking, because if you come back and you get a ticket, or in some cases maybe football season you get a tow, it's not what you want.
Even just for a second.
Just don't do it. Just kind of obey the signs, and if it says no parking, don't park there.
Right.
And because the signs are there for a reason. And I would say the majority of those cases, it is safety related, is why we have parking removals. And so we just encourage people to respect that. If you see it, it's there for a reason, so that you don't get a ticket or you don't get towed. And it is there for safety purposes. We don't do as many of them as we used to as a city, but we still do them. They still come up. We are noticing some of the larger homes are building more parking at the back, which has been extremely helpful to get some of the cars off the street. But overall, that has always been an issue for us. Is you have 2, 3, 4 people living in a home, and sometimes the driveway is big enough for all of the cars, and sometimes it's not.
Right.
But still, that's our best mechanism I think we have to make sure that people can still utilize on-street parking, but at the same time creating a safe environment to where if emergency personnel needs to reach your home, they can reach your home. So yeah, we try to remind people. And if you see a fire hydrant, don't park there.
Right.
I think last year during, I think it was Rush for the sororities, we have a lot of people near the fraternity houses and sorority homes that they're all kind of getting ready to go to their meetings, and like some of them got tickets last year for parking in front of fire hydrants. Some of them got towed, and it's like it's a safety hazard.
Yes.
and I'm sure they were just like trying to find a parking space, get in, get out.
Yeah.
But again, we just want people to be mindful of those things, particularly related to safety.
Yes, and going off of safety, what kind of resources are there, or how do we partner with A&M for certain safety initiatives?
Absolutely. We have a group that meets bi-monthly of city staff that work primarily with students, along with a lot of the off-campus facing departments at Texas A&M. And so we meet bi-monthly and strategize and talk about events, trends, issues, ways that we can work together, events that we can partner on. So we do that frequently, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I also think one of the things that they do really well is they have a department there that focuses on health promotions and issues around alcohol and substance abuse and all of those things. That it's a fantastic department with great resources for the students. I think they do a really good job of getting information to them on what to do in a setting if you're in a nightclub, or just kind of some safety tips that you may not have even thought of because you've never been in that environment before.
Right.
So we rely heavily on them and our partners at UPD when we have large events going on in the community to make sure that we get the word out to them, they get the word out through us. But we primarily, use that department a lot, along with the off-campus student services office. That office was restructured and reopened in, I think, 2023 with a staff of about 5 people. One person that specializes in neighborhood, a neighborhood specialist, one that is a community liaison, an assistant director, and another person that kind of works on just general community-related issues. And so we rely a lot on those departments to get the word out to students. They also do lots of events around alcohol safety and safety when it comes to going out and partying. They do some events during the school year around football season to try to make sure that they get the most information out to the students on how to remain safe while they're trying to have a good time.
Yes. And going off of Northgate and alcohol safety, what are some tips for the students who, maybe turning 21 and going out to Northgate for the first time and have never been in that sort of environment before? What are some things that they need to know to keep them and their friends safe?
Number one is always go with a friend.
Yes.
Alone is not the best way to do it.
No.
So make sure that if you're not with the group, there's at least one other person that you're with. Also, just kind of making sure that you don't overindulge. I think that's always best that you don't do that. I mean, we also have a wonderful unit of police officers now in Northgate, known as C-STEP, College Station Entertainment and Tourism Police, that are in the Northgate district. And they do a really good job.
Yes.
And so I think people are like, wow, there are so many more police officers here, because the Northgate district has grown so much that we have needed to have a specialized unit that works specifically there, that we're not calling off from somewhere else to come to Northgate. That is where they are. They are doing their best to make sure that everybody is there to have a good time and have a good time safely. Also, just making sure that you're not going into spaces that are overcrowded.
Yes.
That always has its own danger to it. And just making sure that if you do have a drink, that you're just monitoring that, you're not leaving it and coming back, and just being sure that if you have a pack that you came together, that you stay together,
yes,
that you don't leave alone. And so those are just some of the things that we often encourage people to just be mindful of, and just I know our partners at Texas A&M has some fantastic information, even down to things like body weight and size. Like,
yes,
how many drinks does it take for you to be beyond intoxicated? Because some people don't know their limits.
Right.
Until
it hits.
Yeah, and by that point, it's too late. So they do a fantastic job of trying to get the word out to students about that, as well as not driving while you're intoxicated.
Yes.
That is another huge one, because most people some may walk there, but the majority of the people drive there.
Right.
And so just making sure that people understand the consequences of driving while intoxicated or driving while drunk, and what that could not just do to you, but to others.
Right.
And so there's a lot of messaging around that as well. And just being sure that if you're there to have a good time, that you have a good time, and that you do so safely. And we
Right.
try to frame what that safety looks like, and still say, hey, go have a good time, but just remember these things to help you
Right.
stay safe while you're there.
Yes, having fun safely. I know when you're having fun, it's easy to forget about doing things safely, especially when there's
Yes, it is.
alcohol
When there's
involved.
alcohol involved, yes.
But yes, and also I think another important point is if you feel like you need help, don't be afraid to ask.
Yes.
RSC staff officers are there to help you.
They are there to help.
Their goal is not to get you in trouble. Their goal is to help you. So if you feel like you need help, you will not be penalized for
Yes.
talking to them
Go
and
ask
asking for
for help.
They would much rather you be safe. And like I said, they are not there to get you in trouble. They are
I
there
agree.
to help you.
They are there to help, and I think that's a big misconception is, oh, they're just out there to ticket us. No, they're out there to make sure you have a good time, and you have a good time safely. Only when it gets out of hand does
Right.
do they move to that point. But they're basically there to make sure Northgate is a fun, safe environment for people to continue for generations to come. And so that's what their goal is, to not stop you from having fun, but just being sure that you are safe while you're doing it. And I think that's really important.
Yes. Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
So to circle back, if students have questions or residents have questions, how can they contact you and get the answers to those questions?
Yeah, they can reach me at bmore@cstx.gov or at 764-6327.
Or the student services
Yes.
at A&M? Or
Yes, absolutely. They can reach, it's off-campus student services, and they can look them up on Texas A&M's website, and they have a large amount of resources available to students that we encourage them and their families to kind of look at those things before they come.
Yes. Now, before we go, we've started doing a fun little game here that
Yeah.
relates to our topic. So we're going to do a quick rapid fire round of questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Did you prefer term papers or final exams when you were in college?
Term papers.
Okay. Gig'em or Howdy?
Howdy.
Howdy. Dorm or off-campus apartment?
Dorm.
Okay. Midnight Yell or Aggie game day?
Game day.
Okay. And lastly, your favorite College Station relaxation spot?
Favorite relaxation spot? Our parks.
Yes.
Absolutely love our parks. There's not one that you could go wrong with. They're all amazing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here
Yeah.
today, Barbara.
Thank you for having me.
And that's what's up.